Hey. Thanks again for pressing play. Welcome once again to another edition of the Suns Jam Session Podcast. Yeah, we're doing a post-game podcast as we typically do. We are the original OG podcast that does post-games. Generally during the season, there's 82 games plus anything that the playoffs bring. But we're doing one here in late July for Team USA. The Olympic journey has officially begun. There's no more friendlies. There's no more exhibition games. There's no more showcases. These games count in the 2024 Paris Olympics. Team USA just played Serbia, so we are here at the Suns Jam Session podcast to talk about that game. Matthew, Team USA is now 1-0 in the 2024 Paris Olympics.
Yeah, very exciting. Sitting here on a free Sunday in America, you get to watch your team USA go up against a team that might be a little bit more difficult than you think, but they kind of just blow them out. So it's a great Sunday. Had some coffee on playback and enjoyed the whole game, dude.
Yes, thank you to anybody who joined us on Bright Side of the Suns playback.tv channel. We did watch the game there. A nice, fun, as you mentioned, relaxing Sunday morning to watch Team USA put a whooping to Serbia. I mean, there's some peaks and valleys at the front end of the game, which is to be expected, but ultimately Team USA wins big, and exciting to see just all the different narratives play out, the guys who didn't play, the guys who did play. So we're going to talk about that and much, much more on this edition of the Suns Jam Session podcast. We have a new member of the Phoenix Suns, Tyus Jones, is now on the Suns. So we definitely want to talk about that, and Matthew and I will react to that addition for Phoenix. But before we get into all that, a reminder, please subscribe, like, rate, and review wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast. If you happen to be on Apple Podcasts, it's been quite some time since somebody has left us a 5-star review. That is, rated us 5 stars and took a little time out of their day, wrote some words about us. We'll read them right here on the podcast if you want us to do so. If you want to leave us a nice long review and be like, hey, man, by the way, don't read this on the pod, we'll do that too. But take the time out of your day. Review us, or don't. I don't care. Team USA, baby. But let's get into this. Again, my name is John Voida, managing editor, Bright Side of the Sun. He's Matthew Lissy, deputy administrator of defense to poop stains on Sunday mornings during playbacks. Crack them if you got them, Suns fans. And just fans of Team America, fans of basketball, period. Let's talk about this. On the Serbia national team, which is a team that has Nikola Jokic on it, and ultimately wins the game. Final score 110-84 at the first game of the Olympics, which brings me to my first question. Matthew, I've got to ask. So, Matthew, I got to ask, obviously, this is the first game of the Olympic run for Team USA and Team Serbia. First game of the Olympics that we've seen. It's been a couple nights now since the Olympics opened. So I guess I got to ask, what are your thoughts on the Olympics overall? Like, do you watch the games that are not basketball? And what are your thoughts on the opening ceremonies?
Okay, so to be honest with the games, everything else going outside of the U.S. basketball, I don't watch. I think back in the day I would watch the diving, I would watch the swimming, all the other exciting events, volleyball, all those ones, you know why? Because of the booties. You know, everyone watches because of the booties. Just gonna say it, just joking. No. You know what? Now I don't get too into it. But maybe as the days go on, maybe I will. Currently, right now, I'm not looking into watching anything else about USA basketball because that's what I'm passionate about. You got Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. I don't want to watch those guys. But everything else, I'm kind of throwing on the back burner for now. I might get into it later. The opening ceremonies were interesting. I was talking to you earlier about it, but I didn't get to see any highlights. I mean, I didn't get to see it, but I did see the highlights on Twitter. It seemed very interesting. I did mention that Gojira, one of my favorite bands. I don't know. I guess they must be from Paris.
Clearly.
From London. Obviously.
Or from France.
Yeah. So, you know, that was kind of interesting to see that whole thing. But other than that, I didn't get to watch it. But I heard from my sister Shannon, your wife, that you did watch the open ceremony. So what was your take from it, man?
So I'm, my wife was calling me an old lady because I sat
Yep.
there. I watched all
That's what
4
she
hours
said. Yes.
of the opening. I love the Olympics. I love them. I watch the opening ceremonies almost every time. I don't think we did in Rio in 16. I feel like we watched part of it. And Tokyo was just weird because of COVID and everything. So there was a lot of restrictions, and I didn't watch that. But I love the Olympics. I'm someone who thrives on the thrill of competition, the physical and mental challenges of sports, and the rich narratives of history and tradition. That's what the Olympics are. They encapsulate all these passions. They're uniting athletes from around the globe to compete on the highest level. It's not just the display of peak athletic performance, but it's a celebration of cultural heritage and historical legacy. When you're seeing all the athletes come down the Seine River in Paris, you're learning at the same time. I have my phone out. I'm Googling where certain, oh God, what Peleliu? There's Peleliu. There's the island chain that Peleliu's on, where there was a big battle in World War II. The Marines fought in the Pacific Theater. They're represented by a country. So I'm like looking up countries as they are coming down. And I like and again, this is the old school part of me. I like that. I like the entrance of the athletes and learning about their stories along the way. Each edition of the Olympic Games brings stories of perseverance, of unity, relentless human spirit, and it's truly a special event that I thoroughly enjoy watching. Now, I watched this opening ceremonies, and everybody has their take on the opening ceremonies, right? It was very Paris. There was drag shows. There was what was the band?
Oh, well, the Gojira band.
Gojira,
Yeah,
is like
with the
rocking out with Marie Antoinette's
Queen,
heads.
yeah, with her head, yeah.
It
was pretty sick. That was the most
it was
badass part of the
nice.
whole thing, I feel like.
It was nice. Like there was a lot of really spectacular, wild, crazy shit. And that's what happens at opening ceremonies. If you watch these things, which I have every year going back to like 1992. Dream Team Barcelona, that I remember watching that with my parents. I watched it in 96. I watched it I watched these things. And yeah, they're artsy fartsy, and there's a deeper meaning to the reason why these dancers have their balls hanging out or whatever it is. But at the same time, here's my one issue with the Olympic opening ceremonies. You want to hear this? This is probably just a me thing. Okay. So the opening ceremonies have all of the Olympic athletes coming down the Seine River. They're passing by Notre Dame or Notre Dame, the cathedral. They're passing by a lot of famous Parisian landmarks, which are really, really cool. And they end at the Eiffel Tower. And they got this beautiful setup where the Eiffel Tower's there with the Olympic rings and the laser show. And then they bring the torch, and kind of throughout the entire evening, they're bringing the torch down the river, and then they bring it to that area where all the dignitaries are, right? The French Prime Minister, and with Tony Parker sitting behind him, and then they bring the torch up onto this large stage that looks like the Eiffel Tower. And that's a big part of the ceremonies. The whole point of the ceremony is to open the games, to light the torch. And so after bringing this torch down the river and showing up to this venue, they walk it in, they hand it to a famous French soccer player, who hands it to Tony Parker, who hands it to somebody else. And then they turn around, they walk it right back out. They go back down the river. They go to the Arc de Triomphe. They walk it down there, and then they light this torch that goes up in a balloon. That's like a mile and a half from where the venue was. So why did they do this whole thing where it's like, we're bringing it here to show you the torch just to take it away? It's just a waste of time. And that was just my take on it. I'm sitting there because I'm tracking.
That's your biggest takeaway.
Yeah, so it's like me going. Let's say I have a loaf of bread that I wanted to deliver to Matthew, because Matthew loves some good sourdough bread.
I love bread.
Okay, and so I drive from my house, which is in North Phoenix, down to Matthew's house, which is in South Phoenix, down in Ahwatukee, and I make that long drive, and I've got the bread, and I show it to Matthew. I go, Matthew, here's your bread. And then I drive over to like Tempe Marketplace and I drop it off there. Like, okay. Like, well, hold on. It was right here.
Your bread. Yeah.
So legit, like none of that made sense to me. All the other stuff I don't care about. Like I love the spectacle of it all. It's weird. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I loved what the spectacle was, but I definitely thought, the way that it was, the hot air balloon thing was just weird. And Tony,
I didn't see that.
And I get it. So he goes, well, but that's because that's where the first hot air balloon was launched. French heritage thing. I understand the why. I don't understand why, like, if it's a balloon that they're just launching into the air that has a torch on it, why not just have that at the venue in where they brought everybody and where everybody's located, because they have that beautiful shot of the Eiffel Tower? Why did they leave that area to light a torch that isn't ultimately in a stadium? Now, if they had left and gone into a stadium and then lit the torch there like every other Olympics, that makes sense to me. But this is just like in a square over by the Arc de Triomphe. Like, they had to get that shot of Paris in there. Why not just light that right there? So again, just
this really, I love your take, and this really bums me out because I actually didn't see that part. The only part I really saw the Olympics was Booker's behind the scenes stuff. Like, that was the most interesting part. Even that was kind of boring to me, but I never really sit down to watch the opening ceremonies anymore. I remember as a kid, that's what you would watch because it was the only thing on TV. But right now, I think just hearing about these things, the hot air balloon, now I got to go back and watch it because now I'm just like, well, what was it really just that interesting? Because a lot of the parts that came out on Twitter, with the Gojira part, with the Last Supper remake by the trans and the ball sacks and all that stuff, like that stuff really hit. I had to go back and be like, wait, was there actually another version of the opening ceremony? Is there really what happened? So I saw
there's what is going to get clicks on the internet, and then there's just
exactly
like the event
satanic
as a whole.
Rituals are happening before our eyes. That's the stuff I follow on Twitter. That's the interesting part, is like just the belief that, these are actually rituals that are happening in front of us, and we can't do anything to control it. We have to accept it.
It's like,
no, they're
Paris
sacrificing right in front of us.
Paris was just being Paris. Like, it's already an artsy,
I guess
fartsy
so.
event, and then it's in
to,
Paris.
Yeah.
Like,
and then and I guess I lose power in Paris. It's like, don't you ever mess with God. So it became a thing, but I'm here for the basketball, and that's it.
Well, I will say one of the coolest moments of the entire opening ceremony was General LeBron James. The famous picture of him going down the Seine River. It's pouring rain, and he's at the front of the boat holding up the American flag.
Yeah,
and it looks so cool. Now, we're pulling the picture up for those of you who are watching, and you can see there's Devin Booker off to the left there. But I got to say, like, in this moment, I've never loved LeBron James more. I'm a patriot. So I would say I love America. I served in the military. Like, I get into all this stuff, and I love seeing LeBron James carrying that flag, and he's just up there, it's the rain in his face. They're going by the Eiffel Tower. It just looked amazing. It looked so cool, and respect for LeBron there.
Yeah, and would you actually, in that moment when he's doing that with the rain and the wind and the pressure of keeping it straight up in the air, like, you think that he kind of regretted it? Or he's just like, this is badass. Okay, because with me, it'd be
it's
like,
LeBron,
well, his arms don't get tired, though. Because I'm thinking about me. I'm like, my arms would get tired doing that.
Well, I'm sure they have like a thing it's in.
Oh, it's probably in it has to be.
Yeah,
if he's just holding that, okay, that's good.
And Coco Gauff is there with him as well, the tennis player. Like, she's holding it too. So if he's getting a little tired, he's like, Coco, this one's on you. No, so this is one of those things where, like, LeBron loves a narrative, right? Like, this is the most narrative picture ever. Okay, you might say, who's the GOAT? And you have that conversation about LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Well, this one's a point for LeBron because that is cool as shit.
These whole Olympics are going to be a point for him.
It is. It is. And I think that's a good transition, talking about the game that we witnessed today, the United States winning 110-84 over the Serbian national team from a high level. What would you say about this game? Obviously, LeBron James had a great game, but what's your initial takeaway?
My initial takeaway, the lows, Joel Embiid should probably not start anymore. The highs is, when the team gets going from three, they're unstoppable, obviously. They're led by two guys, I feel like, with Kevin Durant coming off the bench by that guy, and also LeBron James, of course. He's going to be the true number one. But the sizing of each other up, I feel like these guys kind of want to go out and prove themselves that they're going to make their mark, but they do play as a team in the same way. So it's kind of great. You got these players that you hear about them talking shit in practice, having the play as soon as they get to Paris, they're going head to head, talking shit, and all of a sudden they have to come out and prove themselves individually, but play as a team. A lot of alpha males on that team, but they did such a great job today. I feel like just kind of going away from playing iso ball to moving the ball around, and that had to start with LeBron James. When he left, I felt like they kind of fell apart a little bit. Booker helped them get the lead there early in the first quarter, but also just Kevin Durant coming in off the bench. I think that's just huge. Those two guys are going to be so big for this team. And we argued about, should KD even play? Do we even need him? Obviously, we need him. His stats were incredible. Booker supported him with 12 points, but those two dudes, having them kind of lead that team in a way to where they're kind of competing for who wants to be number one, because LeBron James wants it. That's why he's still playing in garbage time. He wants to put up those stats. And now that KD's here to play and he's scoring 20 plus points, LeBron's going to take it to another level. So that's great to have on your team to where they can actually contribute as a team at the same time.
Well, I think you hit on something good there, quality there, because that was a question coming into this. Is we've watched 5 games of this team in their showcases, right? They played a game in Vegas. They played 2 in Abu Dhabi. They played a couple in London. And the takeaway after watching those 5 games is, man, Team USA might be in trouble because they won by 1 point over South Sudan. They barely beat the German team, and there was not a lot of continuity. There wasn't a lot of fluidity, and there wasn't really any defined roles. The only defined role was, okay, this is going to be about LeBron James. And that's a question coming into the 2024 Paris Olympics, is whose team is this going to be? For a lot of people, they thought that this could be kind of the Curry team, right? Because surprisingly, Stephen Curry's never appeared in the Olympics. And being somebody who has such a global footprint, who can shoot the 3 ball the way that he can, the expectation is, okay, this is just going to be an Olympics where Stephen Curry is going to do, and that's what we saw in the first showcase game, right? It was the first or the second where Curry came out and he hit like 6 out of 9 from beyond the arc in the first half. It's like, okay, this is what the world is going to experience. They're going to see Curry up close and personal, just fucking lighten him up from beyond the arc, and everybody needs to lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way. But as time progressed, as we know, live by the 3, die by the 3. And Team USA has had that issue in their showcases. Well, tonight they go and, as you mentioned, LeBron James kind of sets the tone because he's been the tone setter for this team. And having LeBron, and it's funny because obviously as we normally do our post-game podcasts, I would play the LeBron drop right now, but we don't have a LeBron drop. So this is the LeBron
drop. You
drop.
Couldn't make all the drops for all the players on the team?
I didn't make all the drops for all the
for
players.
6 games?
But here we go. This is the LeBron drop. LeBron drop. So LeBron James in this game, 21 total points. He was 9 of 13 from the field, 1 of 3 from beyond the arc. He had 7 rebounds, 9 assists, did have 6 turnovers, as he was, I think, second best on the team when it comes to plus minus. He was a plus 21 in this game, number 6 for the USA. He led the way today, Matthew.
Yeah, he did. And it can't just be him though, but he wants it to be him. And you can see at times where he wants to take over and hit that 3. Like he'll get hot sometimes. Like he'll come off a pick, hit a wide open 3. Then the next time bringing the ball down, he's like, should I settle for this one? He might. And we're okay with that because I feel like we have other guys on the team too that will settle for that and be okay with it. And then you have other guys that can get hot in certain situations like Booker did tonight early in the game. Steph Curry does later in the game to kind of close the game out. He gets hot from 3. And, there's not so much iso ball. I still think you have the younger guy in Anthony Edwards that might do that once in a while to prove himself too. But that's the only guy that's doing that because everyone's kind of playing their own role, including Booker, who's just going to hit big shots, play some good defense, maybe get some extra rebounds on the offensive end. Like that's his role right now. So everyone knows their role. And with KD just being hot, dude, that's such a fucking force. And the wide open shots he had, it's going to be unstoppable for any team in the Olympics to stop this team. I feel like.
Well, let's talk about Kevin Durant.
Who the heck are you?
I'm Kevin Durant. You know who I am. Y'all know who I am.
Did anybody see a sniper? Did anybody see anything?
I'm one of the best players to ever play the game.
One of the best players to ever play the game showed up and showed out tonight, Matthew.
Yeah.
And by tonight, I mean 8 a.m. this morning. 8 of 8 from the field in the first half, 21 points, and ended with a team high 23 points in not a lot of time played. Right, pulling it up right here. His total minutes. Where'd it go? Oh, 16 minutes. 16 okay. Minutes, 23 points. He was just in fuego. He ends 8 of 9 from the field, so he was only 0 of 1 from the field in the second half. Hit a couple free throws that got him up to that 23 overall point total. But it was a question that we were all wondering is, does this team need Kevin Durant? And after watching the showcases, even though he didn't have any playing time with Team USA, I think the overall consensus was, well, it wouldn't hurt if we had him, because he is the all-time leading scorer in Olympic men's basketball history for Team USA, and he showcased why tonight. I mean, he hit everything. It's funny because when you watch Kevin Durant night in and night out, as we have for the past season and a half with the Phoenix Suns, you take for granted, and I've said this on the podcast before, you take for granted how great of just a pure basketball player he is. The narratives around him starts to affect your perception of who he is as a basketball player. And that's always been the issue with Kevin Durant, is it's the outside non-basketball related things that typically start to take over the conversations rather than his pure scoring ability. And there's validity as to why those things occur. We talk about attitude. We talk about give a shit. I'll tell you this, Matthew, and again, this is like an outside thing. Well, I'll talk about the outside thing here in a second, but from a pure basketball standpoint, he looked fantastic. He was crisp. He doesn't, missing all that time, having the calf strain, didn't matter. Kevin Durant came out, and he changed the way that this game was going, because the Team USA was down 10-2 to start. They fight back, then they give up an 8-0 run, and then like Kevin Durant finally comes in, and easy money sniper was just taking shots left and right and hitting them.
Yeah, and he was just having fun too. He really enjoyed himself from the start. When he came out, the fans were behind him, cheering him on, because they knew like he wasn't playing at all. He was hurt. So to have him out there, you can just feel the energy. And I think he just really fed off that. He had a couple wide open shots to start, started getting more contested, started hitting more difficult shots in the paint area. I mean, in mid range. Then it just kind of led one to the other, dude, and he just was unstoppable. So this kind of play from him coming off the bench, obviously, like I said before, is really big for this team, but I feel like it's just big for him too, because last year was just, stats were great, right? But it's one of the more miserable years we've had in Phoenix. But him playing with Booker in the Olympics and kind of just feeding off of each other, being two of the best players out there.
Yeah.
It's just, it's big for Phoenix. It's big for those guys, and it's going to lead into next year. So if this continues, he's obviously not going to go 8 for 9, and missing that one shot, dude, how embarrassing, right?
I know. God, cut him, bench him, throw him back on the bench.
Embarrassing. But if he's playing this way, and obviously not going to make every shot, but those two just, they're going to have a good Olympic run. And this is just absolutely fun as a Suns fan to watch, out of any other fan, I feel like, because we're just enjoying both of our players and playing big minutes for this team. So nothing could be better right now.
Yeah, it was great to see Kevin Durant come out, play with that joy, execute basketball the way that he can ultimately execute basketball, and what makes him one of the 15 greatest players to ever play the game. Now, the non-basketball stuff, a narrative that I can take from this and kind of, joke around a little bit about, or at least observe, is you know what I found kind of funny?
Say what?
I found funny that he was hanging out at the bench, Matthew. He wasn't sitting off to the side, right?
Yeah.
Because that's been a challenge with Kevin Durant, right? Like when he's on the Suns, he goes and sits off to the side for whatever reason, but it's definitely something that we've noticed. Yes. Remember the game where you literally just watched Kevin Durant while covering the game for Bright Side of the Sun, sitting on press row. You're like, I'm just going to focus on KD and see how his body language plays. Much more engaged with Team USA, right?
Yeah, when you have a coaching staff with Steve Kerr, Spoelstra, and Ty Lue, and then a group of guys that are just basically future Hall of Famers, I think you have to kind of stick together, stay at the group. But when you're playing all these games with a coach that you fucking hate the whole time, and you're just playing with players that you see every day of your life, you're obviously not going to be in the huddle every time. So I think these 6 games, you're going to see them more just basically giving his 2 cents anytime there is a break, supporting his teammates and stuff like that. That's gonna be big. And he, not like he didn't do it in Phoenix, but with this, he just knows that the winning the gold would be nice, but also just being more of a mentor to a lot of those players. And Anthony Edwards always saying that he's his favorite player growing up, and he's gonna be the leader of this team. He's kind of showing up, maybe just for Anthony Edwards, but I think just for himself and just having a good time out there. Yeah,
I just think it's got to be a great feeling for KD, who hasn't played, comes out and just lights it up in Paris. So another member of the Phoenix Suns had a good game. I mean, this is a great game for Phoenix Suns people.
Big Dick
Booker. So good old BDB, Big Dick Booker, ends the game, starting, by the way, but ends the game in 26 minutes played with a total of 12 points. He was 4 of 5 from beyond the arc. Add in there a couple rebounds and 5 assists and 0 turnovers. I'm telling you, Monte Morris and Tyus Jones are already paying off. But tell me what you saw from Devin Booker tonight, Matthew.
He's just someone put it on Twitter about being the silent assassin for this team. That's exactly what he is. He's hitting his spots. He starts out hot, hitting 2 threes, ends the game hitting 2 threes again to put the team away, put Serbia away, even though it was kind of already out of hand. But you like to see him kind of start and finish strong, but in between just play really good defense and get some big boards in there too. The guy there's not a whole lot of pressure on him on either end of the floor, but he's giving his all in defense. Offensively, he's going to basically just be ready for anything. And I love the fact that he is getting to the rim on the offensive end. When shots are up and he's not shooting them, he can get under the rim and try to get those putbacks. I mean, to get the second chance points for his team. But, you know, the whole thing, him coming into this thing with Anthony Edwards, I mentioned it before, being the best 2 guard. Honestly, I was looking forward to him obviously starting, but I wanted him to play with Anthony Edwards, and it looked really good tonight too. It's just, it's a fun kind of tandem to have, like an aggressive guy with Anthony Edwards and then a guy with Booker who's just a knockdown shooter. Those two on the floor at the same time, we saw a little bit of it today, and that was interesting for me, and it's something I definitely want to see going to Olympics.
Yeah, I don't know if we saw it during the showcases. I
don't think so.
Booker and Edwards minutes. Booker in this game was being subbed in and out for Kevin Durant, whereas during the showcases, he was being subbed in and out for Anthony Edwards. And I agree with you. I like it because Booker's a great off-ball player. And Anthony Edwards likes to be a ball-dominant player, and they can play off each other. Now, again, we didn't see much of it, but what we did see, it was productive. And Booker was just fantastic in this game from a shooting standpoint. Again, 4 of 5 from beyond the arc. Looked crisp, looked refreshed, just looked great out there. You know, it must be hanging out with LeBron James is rubbing off on him, because it's funny because they're like boys now.
They're like always together.
Yeah, every picture you see, like there's one video. It's not a video. There's one. Well, I guess it could be a video now. But there was one interview that was happening while I was watching the Olympic ceremonies, and they kept cutting to, I forget her name, Michelle. I forget her name. But no. But she was interviewing players on Olympians on the Team USA boat, and she was interviewing LeBron James and Coco Gauff, right? And sitting in the background was just Devin Booker with his hat on backwards, like right there. And like I showed that iconic picture before, where you see LeBron James going down the Seine holding the American flag, and there's Devin Booker off to the left.
Just Booker, him.
Yeah. And when they were coming out of the hotel, Booker's got the jacket held over the shoulder, looking suave and cool with his hat on backwards, very Booker, right next to LeBron James. So it's almost like every time you see LeBron James this Olympics, like Booker's just like off to the side. There's a big team picture that they took on the boat, all the basketball players. There's LeBron, Booker's right next to him. So I don't know what it is, but like the greatness is rubbing off. That's what makes the Olympics great for these basketball players, is to put them in these situations and around these people who can influence them, and the greatness rubs off, and how to be a champion and things of that nature. And Booker's been, smartly going. He's like, hey, this is the greatest guy in modern basketball. He's not Michael Jordan, but he's what I've got. So I'm going to go hang around him. And I thought it was fantastic.
No, it's funny because it's great because he has to do that. That's the way Book is. He has to kind of get the rubbing off from LeBron James as much as he can. He's like spending so much time with them. So, if they're walking in a line, he's always going to rush up there, kind of like Donald Trump, trying to get ahead of everybody and then be right next to LeBron. He just has to be at the head of the line with LeBron. That way, when people do cheer their names walking out of the hotel, it's all LeBron. They're like, who's that other guy? Oh, it's Booker. He's just learning. And he kind of has like the American Beauty kind of thing. Is it American Beauty where the guy had the camera? He was like a fucking creep. Like,
Kevin Spacey.
He's just like recording LeBron the whole time, like, or Kevin Durant, just like looking good around. I don't know. Book's always showing up in a different way. And I did mention before, I'm like, oh, he wore a different outfit. He wore the jacket, but he had it around his shoulder. I'm like, of course he did. He always just has these.
And he had the hat on backwards.
Yeah, he does these things, and he looks the best in that backwards hat.
Yeah,
like he pulls it off so well, but he always just does these things where it just takes him a step above everybody else. I don't know how he does it, but he does everything so much cooler than everybody else, and he always pulls it off.
He's a cool motherfucker, and he was cool out there on the court today.
Yes.
So a couple other things around Team USA. I want to give a shout out to Hey.0 in the chat. That's a good question. How do you think Tatum feels? Now, Jason Tatum, 0 minutes played. Both him and Tyrese Halliburton didn't get any opportunity to play today. Obviously, just won a championship with the Boston Celtics, but so did his teammates, Drew Holiday and Derek White. They're out there playing. Jason Tatum isn't. What are your thoughts on Tatum not playing?
Well, we talked about this during playback. I think he's fine. I think he's okay. I think he's well worn out. I know those other guys are playing, and Drew Holiday, obviously. I wouldn't want to. What I was going to say was really like, oh, Jason Tatum, he played so many minutes. He gave his heart and soul, but those other two dudes did too to win a championship. To me, I feel like it's something kind of internal where he's just like, hey, I kind of maybe play every other game. Like if you absolutely need me, yes, but I kind of want to rest. And he doesn't seem too upset on the bench. He's up there cheering his teammates. Towards the end of the game, he's just sitting there in silence, but he wants to play, obviously. And I do think he'll play big minutes next game. I just think it's one of those things with matchups. And we talked about who's going to start and stuff. I would like to see him play the 4 with Anthony Davis at the 5 and see how that looks against Sudan. Like, I think that would be a good 4 and 5 matchup against them, but I think he's okay with it. And I think it's seriously internal where he's just like, I just don't want to play too much. I want to kind of rest, but I want to be here and enjoy this and win a gold still.
100%. Like, not every player is going to play every game, even if it's the Olympics, right? I mean, this is a challenge that we run into when we watch the Phoenix Suns night in and night out, is if the team loses, or even in some situations where the team wins, the fan base starts calling for the 14th and 15th guy on the bench, and why is he not getting minutes? Man, if he played, the result would have been different. It's like, you can't say that. That's you're making your observation on something that is unprovable because it didn't happen. You're speculating that a guy with the 14th or 15th best talent on the team or impact on the team relative to rotation would actually have made the impact. Like, it's calling for Ish Wainwright when the team loses by like 5 points. Like, man, if Ish had just played 5 minutes, I'm like, no, it would have been worse. We would have lost by 10. In theory, it's the same thing here, where with Jason Tatum, somebody's not going to play, and it was him and it was Tyrese Halliburton. Obviously, the funny angle here for me is the fact that Bill Simmons regularly has been going on his podcast, just beating the drum as to, like, he thinks that Tatum should be the 3rd best guy on this team. He's like, well, there's Steph Curry and there's LeBron James, the elder statesman, and Jason Tatum's got to be the guy. And based on he goes through every statistic based off of previous Olympics and minutes played, and skips right over Devin Booker and his impact on the team, and is wondering why he's on the team. He's just like, well,
so many minutes.
Yeah, he's like, why is he getting so many minutes? That should be Jaylen Brown's spot. And Jason Tatum should be the 3rd guy. And he's like, well, 18-1 is good value for Jason Tatum to be the highest point scorer on Team USA. And then Tatum doesn't even play. I'm with you. It's matchup based. Not everyone's going to play every game. And I think in this game, given the matchup against the Serbian team, I think that Jason Tatum probably wasn't at the top of Steve Kerr's list relative to how productive he could be against this team. Now, when we play South Sudan, which is a long team that shot the shit out of the 3-ball when they played us last in the 101-100 victory for Team USA over them, Tatum might get some more play due to his length and athletic ability. So time will tell. I don't think it's the end of the world, but any Boston fan out there is just going nuts about it, right?
Yeah, but that's crazy because, like I said, if Book won the championship, if he won, I know we talked about Tokyo happened after they lost, but if he won and he's not playing, I would not give a fuck. He says, Tatum just vibing. That's what I think too. Like, this is weird how it is kind of like any kind of, it's not a tiff. It's not anything. I don't think it should be brought up. The only reason is because of Bill Simmons, but also Tatum probably is a better player than Book, but right now it's like, you don't need a Tatum to probably win these games, especially if KD comes in and he's struggling, maybe you put in Tatum, but KD was on fire. And like, I feel like those two are probably going to switch minutes. So if he's grooving, leave him out there and play Tatum the next game.
And like Durantula says in the chat, he goes, Tatum is way better than Book, or way better than Book. numbers and accomplishments, that's not the debate here. Is who's the better
No,
player?
not at all.
Who's the better player for this team? Well, obviously Devin Booker he's getting the start because he's a complementary player who doesn't run isolation sets, who plays on the defensive end and is going to complement the players around him instead of having that need to be an alpha, which I'm not saying Jason Tatum is, but that potential does exist and just doesn't fit, at least in the confines of this game against Serbia. Another thing that doesn't fit in the confines of Team USA, and I just don't understand, is Joel Embiid. Perfect Remedy says Embiid had a bad game. He'll get cheers when he goes off. Offensively, he's undeniable. And Marco says, how about Embiid getting booed from the French? Well, obviously, one of the narratives coming into this Olympics is the fact that Embiid, who has not played in the Olympics before, has the ability to play for France and chose to play for the USA, is playing for Team USA. And he's the one guy, it's like one of these things is not like the other. He played 11 minutes, had 4 points, and had a team worst -8. Everybody on this team was a positive plus minus. The only minutes in which we struggled were the 11 minutes when Joel Embiid was out there. So tell me about Joel Embiid on this team.
No, it's a little awful, and I think they kind of got to go to Anthony Davis. I've been saying that since the exhibition games.
Yep.
I think that we were talking about the fuck shit up guy. We don't really have that. Maybe Drew Holiday, but he is. So he was talking about
Joel
shit this
Embiid
game.
is a fuck shit up guy.
If you want someone to get in there and just kind of take down these other dudes for no reason, that's Embiid, and you kind of need that. So the only other way to look at this in a positive way is you do need that big body. Obviously, he's having a hard time adjusting to these type of games, so where you want to move the ball around more, taking too much time with the ball. But I think that he can be of value just because of his sheer size in certain matchups. So that's a good way to look at it. Otherwise, I'm thinking Anthony Davis is the answer. But I kind of feel bad a little bit for Joel Embiid. He chose. I mean, if you're gonna go to play with France and you're playing with Wembanyama
and Rudy Gobert,
you're not gonna want to do that.
Yeah.
USA kind of needed him more than those other two teams did. I feel like.
Yeah, the team just looks different with Embiid out there. Slow, sloggy, bad perimeter defense.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's going to be a time and a place when you're going to need somebody like Embiid. Like if you play France, you're going to need that big body down in the paint, bumping uglies with Rudy Gobert.
Exactly.
But Anthony Davis should get the start on Team USA. It just looks like a much more fluid team with him out there.
Yes.
And maybe that's the way to do it. Is you come out, you try to ground and pound him with Joel Embiid, let him kind of get a sweat lathered up and going and elbow a couple guys in the face. And then you have him sit down and let Anthony Davis take over. That's where I think Jason Tatum can come into play. So he can play some small ball five. Now, obviously, Bam Adebayo is the backup to the backup when it comes to the five. But yeah, Embiid, there'll be a time and a place for him. It is
what it is. Kind of like the Tatum thing. It's like, we got other answers.
So when we talk about this game, there's one question, Matthew.
Jam star of the game.
Who are you giving the jam star of the game to in this one, man? There's a couple names here that could be eligible for this award.
I got to give it to KD. Not being biased, but it has to be KD just because of the way he started. And you're going to get the stats. You're going to get what you get from LeBron. And of course, we were even doing the thing on playback where, look at how fucking like he's unstoppable. And obviously he's very old. And we talk about that, even though I'll be 40 in 4 years. And I'm just like, this guy is unstoppable. But if you don't start the game with KD getting that hot, I feel like coming in, then maybe it's a different type of game. So I'm going to give it to KD.
You know what? I think that's the right answer. LeBron James definitely had his impact on this game, and he was willing himself to helping this team win. Almost too much. Like there were some fast breaks where he was trying to go through guys instead of hitting, Devin Booker on the wing for a wide open 3-point shooter or 3-point shot. So I would have liked to see LeBron kind of pass out of those situations. But I will say, like So Says Jay said on Twitter, he said, I must say, Kevin Durant has been playing an entirely different level ever since he blocked Darth Vader on Twitter. And and he's not.
I guess you were in his mind.
He's not wrong. When he's out there, he's playing for his country.
Yeah.
And he's got a wide open shot. He's like, I'm going to show that motherfucker from Bright Side of the Sun. I'm going to block him because he told me. Because remember, Kevin Durant blocked me when I told him to have a nice summer and thank you for representing the United States in Paris.
Yeah.
So he's out there throwing daggers.
Relationship. the highs and lows. You should go back and make like one of those, just a video tribute to like your relationship with, Kevin Durant. Yeah, lasting 2 days or two weeks.
2 weeks. Him calling me a clown.
Yeah.
KD is who Marco H is going to go ahead and give it to. LeBron from Perfect Remedy. Durantula, who you think would give it to KD, says Drew Holiday. Maya B.
Game,
so Kevin Durant's in the chat. KD, Easy Money, Slim Reaper. Drew Holiday. Let's see. Drew Holiday's final stat line. He had 15 points, 6 of 8 from the field, 3 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 turnovers, 2 steals. Overall, solid performance by Drew Holiday. A good call having him out there starting for this team.
And Maya B, I don't know if he's heard it, but I figured that you're actually Kevin Durant's burner account here.
Yep. And tell us why.
Because, okay, actually, I kind of forgot what it was. So I feel like I don't want to go through it again. I don't have that.
Hey, Dirty, hey, I got your money. Don't you worry. Suns Fever 83 says KD as well. And then Hey Zero says a shout out to Derek White, who did do a great job. We were talking about during the playback. 110 to 84 over the Serbian team. That is a damn good game for the Team USA. All right, switching gears here now. We do have some Suns news to talk about.
There he is! There's the Rowdy one! There is Rowdy!
There he is, the Rowdy one. The Rowdy one is now gone. David Roddy was traded just a couple days ago to the Atlanta Hawks for E.J. Liddell. And everyone's like, oh, no, not E.J. Liddell. Who's E.J. Liddell? But ultimately, the reasoning behind that is because the Phoenix Suns were in the process of doing a little shopping, if you will. They found a team that was interested in David Roddy, which unto itself is kind of a miracle, right, Matthew?
Oh, absolutely. We weren't the biggest fans of him. So when I did see it happen, we expected it, but we didn't expect the actual outcome of the whole transaction and why it was currently going about or what was happening.
Yes. So after the trade happens, everyone's like, okay, why? We got the 6'6" guy drafted in 2022 from the Atlanta Hawks. What's the why? And it's the Suns were going to do this anyways, is the reports. They were going to release David Roddy to open up a roster spot. And the fact that you had the Atlanta Hawks, who were interested in him, made a trade for a guy who had less money. So the Suns saved a little money on that side of the transaction, right? They sent out 2.8, they got back 2.1, and then they cut him, and then they signed in free agency Tyus Jones, former member of the Memphis Grizzlies, former member of the Washington Wizards last year, a point guard who's been sitting out there in free agency, ultimately signs on a $3.3 million veteran minimum deal. Matthew, tell me what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I know you're going to go the contract route and how he has to kind of prove himself to now get the money that you can get, because you either get this minimum deal or you get the about $20 million a year. It's like there's no in between anymore, right?
The death of the mid-level contract.
Yeah, so that's a big part of like him being here to prove himself. But obviously, like, he was a guy that we've always loved, and the fact that I saw that we got him, I was blown away. Last year when we got Eric Gordon, it was kind of like, oh, the cherry on the sundae. It was like, yeah, but it was great. It was awesome. The death lineup. We had the shooting with Eric Gordon now, right? Even more shooting with Eric Gordon. But we needed that ball handler. We needed a distributor. We got a guy that's going to play at a very high level here in Phoenix, and that might be a starter. Proved himself to be a starter in Washington. Obviously, Washington Wizards, not the greatest team. You're going to get some starting minutes there. But he proved himself to handle himself well as a starting point guard. His first real starting job in the NBA. So the fact that the Suns got him for that minimum level, it's kind of a steal. It's astonishing to what they can bring here to Phoenix for that much money, just because of these players that want to prove themselves still, that are veterans, but also want to make the big money next year. And they just want to win. They want to play with Booker, Kevin Durant, but mostly those two guys. And they know that they can win. I think starting here is going to be huge. Obviously, we'll keep talking about the rest of the pod and him starting, coming off the bench, whatever. But I think him starting in that lineup is exactly what they needed. And I cannot believe we got this guy.
So obviously the starting in the lineup aspect of this is going to be conversation we're probably going to have the rest of the summer.
Yeah.
Because when he signs with Phoenix, what he tells ESPN is the chance to play for the Phoenix Suns made the most sense on a lot of levels to me and my family, beginning with the way Matt Ishbia and the front office recruited me to how Coach Budenholzer showed me how I can significantly impact a team that has a real opportunity to challenge for an NBA title as their starting point guard. So that's what he says. So everyone's on there like, hold on, he's starting? Well, what's that mean? So let me back up a little bit. This is an unbelievable deal for the Phoenix Suns. This is an unbelievable signing. Just when you thought that this team entering this summer wasn't going to have an opportunity to do anything in free agency, the second tax apron restrictions have hurt Phoenix so bad that they weren't going to be able to do anything. They've got Monte Morris, which I think was a fantastic signing in free agency because you brought in a guy who has played point guard, which is definitely a need of the team, and doesn't turn the ball over. And now they go and they get Tyus Jones, who's a better Monte Morris because he 7.3 assists last year to 1 turnover. So a 7.3 to 1 turnover ratio for Tyus Jones. Started in 66 games for the Washington Wizards, averaged 12 points and 7.3 rebounds on a shit team. But he's definitely somebody who can handle that position. There is no issue anymore with point guard depth for the Phoenix Suns. The question becomes, how is this team going to execute the point guard position? Is it, okay, you're a point guard, Bradley Beal, you're our 2 guard, Devin Booker, who's been playing the small forward or the 3 with Team USA, you're now our small forward, and then KD and Nurkic. Is that the starting 5? Or is it going to be Tyus Jones coming off the bench, or is Grayson out? I mean, there's a lot of options now. And it's a good thing to have options because, and this is one thing, a lot of people are going to get into that conversation whether or not he should be starting. People on this team are going to be injured this year. It's not going to matter, okay?
Exactly.
It's not going to matter. Like, it's all going to work itself out because of injuries. But I can't believe that they were able to pull off the free agent gymnastics to get Tyus Jones. Just can't believe.
No, yeah, sorry. I thought you were gonna keep going.
Oh, I can't keep going.
That was a miss on me. No.
God, what is this, episode 4?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, and we're talking about minutes too. I see it a lot on Twitter and what you're gonna do if you're gonna play Bradley Beal at the 3, you're gonna have him start, have Tyus Jones start at the point guard position. To me, obviously, in my world, me controlling this team, if we're gonna win a championship,
and I agree with what you're about to say, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Tyus Jones play. Okay, really quick. I just want to go through this comment.
Omar T.
No, just Perfect Remedy. Monty Morris should be pissed. See, I don't think that. I think these two are going to play a lot of minutes, and I think you have the perfect starting point guard for this type of team. It's kind of like a Mario Chalmers kind of type of deal where he's just going to be the facilitator, not so much focus on him on scoring or anything like that, but he can run this offense with these guys. And I'm going to go Bill's going to have to be a guy that maybe comes off the bench, and you're going to get the most from those guys. I feel like if you're going to have like a Royce O'Neal play the 3 with that starting lineup with Tyus Jones, Booker, and Kevin Durant, it's like, well, you want the best players on the court maybe to start, but I just think that's the best way to go about it if you're going to win these games is to have Beal come off the bench and play with Monte Morris more. So you'll have ball handlers on basically the whole game. Obviously there's going to be a tug and pull between the minutes and stuff like that. But like you said, there are going to be injuries. Like Beal's probably going to be injured for most of the year. So I'm just saying that's the way he's been. So we can't just overlook that. And I just think they'll figure it out because you have to like kind of sacrifice. And I feel like we have the perfect type of group that will sacrifice and that Beal can maybe come off the bench, but that's going to be hard. I don't think that's going to happen until maybe mid-season. But we have 2 guards that are backups, but really, really good fucking backup point guards. Yes. And I don't think like any other team really has that in the NBA, do they? I know you have your starting point guard, you have your backup guard, but we have like 2 really good backup point guards with like 3, like the big 3. I think that's a really kind of a different tandem that a lot of teams don't have right now in the NBA.
I'll go back to something that is a drum that I've beat for quite some time. It's not about who starts, it's about who finishes. So you can have Beal out there starting, whatever, 5 minutes into the game based on the game script. You pull him, and then next thing you know, Tyus Jones in there. Monte Morris is going to be in there at some point, especially with an injury start to occur. I mean, but like you said, there's an opportunity to always have quality point guard playmaking if needed on this team, coupled around an unbelievably talented big two in Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, with Bradley Beal being the second tier player on this team, obviously tier one being Booker and Durant. But I think that it's a good problem to have. Everything that we're talking about right now is a great problem to have, and it's a problem that we didn't know that we would have the opportunity to talk about when we entered this offseason. Now, obviously, the Tyus Jones signing for $3.3 million, 1 year, a prove-it deal, if you will. It's not necessarily a prove-it deal. This is a guy who made $14.5 million last season with the Washington Wizards. This signifies the death of that mid-level contract, and something I've been talking about that we will see played out over the next few seasons as it relates to the first to second apron. There's teams out there who could have afforded to give Tyus Jones at least 7 to 10 to 14 million if need be, but because of all these restrictions, they're afraid to sign him to it. They don't want to give him 14 million a year over, and for 3 years, because it could ultimately hurt them in the long haul as it relates to first apron restrictions, second apron restrictions, tax restrictions. So he had to ultimately take the second deal, a veteran minimum deal, and it doesn't really hurt the Suns financially. Bobby Marks tweeted out, he says, the Tyus Jones signing technically could cost Phoenix nothing this season. Here's why. Tyus Jones cap hit is $2.1 million. The savings in the Liddell-Roddy swap was $700,000, and the 24-25 savings if Liddell is stretched, because they had to waive and stretch him, is $1.4 million. So they didn't lose any money in this deal. It's genius. If you pull up the overall tax situation for the Phoenix Suns, and this is how Bobby Marks tweeted out. He goes, the starting five for Phoenix is now Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal at the forward, Kevin Durant, Jusuf Nurkic. Reserves, you have Monte Morris backing up Tyus Jones, which I fucking love. Behind Devin Booker, you have Grayson Allen and Damian Lee, which I fucking love. Behind Bradley Beal at the three, you have Josh Okogie, Nasir Little, Ryan Dunn, and EJ Liddell, who they're going to be waiving. And then behind Kevin Durant, you have Royce O'Neal, Oso Ighodaro, and then behind Jusuf Nurkic, you got Mason Plumlee and Bol Bol. The two-way contracts are Jalen Bridges and Colin Gillespie. So this is a good fucking lineup, dude. Like, if you had shown me this lineup at the end of last season and said, this is what we're rolling in next year, and you told me that we got Tyus.
That's all I wanted.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we want. We said we need a fucking point guard. We got two. We got two quality point guards. One of them is a veteran minimum guy in Monte Morris, who's taken less than probably what his market value was. And Tyus Jones took a ton less than what his market value was for a couple of reasons for both of them. One, because they want to be a part of this team and potentially win a championship, but primarily because the second apron and the first apron and all those tax restrictions have killed the middle tier contracts. So these guys have to come here and try to prove, kind of quote unquote prove it deals. And the Suns are benefiting from that in some weird fucked up way because we're willing to spend money on guys. We're actually getting quality backups.
Yeah, they got to get rid of that.
This isn't cementing that too, man.
Yeah, the apron stuff, I don't feel like will be here in 3 or 4 years. Whenever there's just no way. I feel like because of this, where these players can't get paid what they're actually worth per season, like that's crazy. Because you take the lesser money this year to prove yourself, but that's all you can take right now. And who knows if there's injuries or something. Like, you're not getting paid your actual value this season. That's fucking insane for like the entertainment that these guys bring and the actual like putting their body on the line every season. You want to win a championship, yes, but I feel like taking care of yourself money-wise is always a big thing. We say like the millions of dollars, oh, that's so much, right? Like having $3 million is a lot, but these guys are worth so much more. And it kind of makes me sad a little bit too, because I'm very excited to get Tyus Jones, but he's a guy I've always wanted, and I feel like his value is just that much more. So it makes me feel a little sad for him because I feel like he just deserves more because he brings that much more to a team, but he can't get it because of the fucking apron. It's fucking crazy.
And that's what they'll discuss. The next CBA, I believe, is in before the 29-30 season. Yeah. So they'll start the negotiations here in a couple seasons, especially after the new media rights deal comes in.
It's just so stupid, dude. All these guys, like, they make so much money off the NBA. And it's just like you can't just spend as much as you want, and you get hurt by it for all these penalties and stuff, and now the players are hurting from it. Like, it's just total bullshit. I think it is. It makes me mad. Even though I love this roster, I absolutely
do too.
We would have got him anyways if we didn't have the apron stuff. Of course, we could pay him whatever.
Yes,
but
he would have got 14 million at least from us. And I will say, you know, Tyus Jones is somebody who we've always, like, I know when we played Washington twice this year and we were doing post-game podcasts, we are talking about him and how he'd be a great fit in Phoenix.
Yeah.
His brother, Trey Jones, with San Antonio, somebody who, like, I've put in trade targets for years because he's similar in his point guard skills. Obviously, Tyus is the better of the two. And so the fact that we got one of the Jones brothers, I'm very, very pleased with this transaction for the Suns and how our overall roster looks. And I see what Durantula says. He says, we are too small. I don't think that's true. I honestly don't. We have Yusuf Nurkic, who's fucking massive. You have Mason Plumlee, who's fucking massive. You have Oso Ighodaro, who's not fucking massive, but is an athletic big who can pass. You have Kevin Durant, who's not fucking massive, but he's a slim reaper. You got Bol. There's length there. I mean, we don't need a team full of Yusuf Nurkic's out there. We need a team who has a Yusuf Nurkic and a Mason Plumlee foundational interior type with good quality wings around him. You got Ryan Dunn, who is going to be an amazing defender, probably not going to get a lot of playing time initially, but he's going to have the ability to lock down opposing defenders when called upon because that's his primary skill set. If he develops into a quality player, that's a 6'6" guy. I mean, we don't need to be the Monstars to win. You need to have a good cohesive unit that that can beat you in multiple ways. And when I look at this roster, and again, I'm falling into the same trap that I fell into last year, where the excitement is starting to boil. Now, granted, I've talked about this before. There's going to be continuity on this lineup that's going to be unbelievably unquantifiable. It's going to make this team much more tough to beat because they know how to play together. And now on the fringes, you've added quality players and quality young talent, upside talent and quality foundational players. It's a great offseason for Phoenix.
It is. And the Celtics that just won kind of lived and died by the three, right? I mean, they're a good defensive unit. Obviously, they weren't too huge. But the thing is, the Suns can't they can't really adjust their lineup in a way to where they can get big anymore. I know the West did get a little bit bigger through the draft this year, obviously. And that's
the Suns got more. The Suns got more athletic and more foundationally.
Yeah, we already know.
Better.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, this team is going to feed off of a guy or a couple guys that can move the ball around. Like, that's all we basically needed all season. Otherwise, we would have destroyed the league. Like, that would have been a thing. Who knows about the championship?
Yeah,
but we would have had a much better season if we had some guy that wasn't turning the ball over in the fourth quarter. So we got that. We got exactly what we needed, and we're not going to get size. There's no one else out there. Even if we had size, like, just don't adapt to what's out there right now. Just live off of your strengths, and I think that's what the Suns have to really focus on. That's what they're doing.
Agreed. And what's the definition of size? Is it girth? Is it, the unicorns, the athletic ability relative to size? I say Durantula said trade Grayson Allen for Patrick Williams. No, I'm not trading
There's
great
no
3-point shooter who started for this team, is going to be a great 3-point shooter coming off the bench. I don't want to give that away for another athletic wing who gets injured, doesn't play, like Nasir Little. Like, I'd rather take somebody who I know is going to hit that 3-point shot with a consistent basis. But again, we all are general managers in our own minds, and we play this game the way that, or we want this team to execute the way that we think is best fit to take on the competition in the NBA. But I think the Suns are sitting in a really, really good spot. So on that note, Matthew, is there anything else you want to talk about before we carry on with our little Sunday here?
No, it's been great. I mean, the Suns got their team together. USA basketball is amazing to watch. I mean, it's great to be alive right now in America.
Yeah,
in Phoenix, Arizona.
In Phoenix, Arizona, where it's 100 and hell outside, cooking eggs on the pavement and all that shit. Well, again, we appreciate everybody who's watching along live or listening at a later time. Thanks for hanging out with the Suns Jam Session podcast. We will be going live on Wednesday evening. We will do a post-game pod after the Suns play South Sudan. Won't be right after the game like this one is. And then we'll be live after the Puerto Rico game next Saturday morning. So if you haven't yet, please give us a thumbs up. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a subscribe. If you want to throw on those bell notifications that let you know when we go live, it's a good idea to do too. And again, if you're listening, if it's on Spotify, give us a 5-star review. Or give us 5 stars. If on Apple, give us a 5-star review. We truly appreciate it. It's the best way to support the podcast. But on that note, I'm going to go play some College Football 25.
All right, I'm going to go to IKEA, everybody. Go home, love
Ooh.
your family.
Go home and love your
American
Swedish-made
family.
furniture.
Call Suns Jam Session, post-game thrill. John and Matthew, podcast skill. Analyzing games with comedic flair. Since 2019, they've been right here. Suns Jam Session, post-game pod. Talking Suns ball with the Jamster squad. From the Valley of the Sun, spreading the word. Original podcast, haven't you heard? Subreddit stick
Balls.
out behind enemy lines. Batman, Valley, Lissy, and Curry combined. Reporting live. With jokes to the brain, adding flavor to the podcast game. Suns Jam Session, post-game pod. Talking Suns ball with the Jamster squad. From the Valley of the Sun, spreading the word. Original podcast, haven't you heard? Subreddit stakeout behind enemy lines.
We should do a subreddit stakeout next time.
Reporting live.
The South Sudan subreddit. We'll check it out. We'll be there for you, Jamsters.
Talking Suns ball with the Jamster squad. From the Valley of the Sun, spreading the word. Original podcast, haven't you heard? Die-hard fans are just passing through. Suns Jam Sessions got something for you. Lick the eyes to the feet, get a bite with the Suns through the day and the night. After every game, don't miss the beat. Suns Jam Session is gonna bring the heat. John and Matthew,